Welcome everyone to our first of 3 webinars focusing on using Foundation Cloud instead of GE Classic. My name is Amy Strom, your Director of Client Success, and today you'll be hearing from Jeff Armstrong, our Chief Innovation Officer. A couple of housekeeping items. We will be recording today's presentation and we will be sending it out to all of those that have registered. Also, if you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We have team members monitoring your questions, and we will also make time at the end to discuss some of them. Before we dive in, let's quick review the upcoming webinar series to help you prepare for the sunsetting of GE Classic and that admin view. Our plan is to cover all the core workflows and processes without the need to go back to Classic View. This session will walk through some of the navigational information, new paradigms, and how your team can use change management to successfully make this change. In session 2 on November 2nd, we will dig a bit deeper and cover constituents, funds, and grants, including correspondence. And on session 3, November 9th, we'll be digging into the online grant requests, web applications, workflows, and batches. If you think of other topics you want us to cover, shoot me an email or feel free to enter it in the chat and we'll capture it there. So for our agenda today, we're going to talk about that change management and some best practices. The shift to using Foundation Cloud grants, including navigation, screen differences, and the batch screens. And remember to ask questions along the way, but we will make time at the end to cover some of the questions as well. So as a reminder, here is our timeline for sunsetting GE Classic. Our team has been preparing for this for the last 2 years and want to ensure that you can do all of your business processes and then some with the new Foundation Cloud and the added functionality requested by you, our users. In March of this year, 2023, we stopped splitting our development efforts between Classic and Foundation Cloud to focus on the growth of Foundation Cloud by no longer enhancing Classic. In March of 2024, we will end comprehensive support of Classic on March 1st, both hosted and on-prem instances. Please know, if you're in the process of migrating to Foundation Cloud, we will continue to support through your migration. If you are already a Foundation Cloud customer, admin view will go away at the end of March, on March 31st, 2024. This is when that link will go away and the Citrix logins will be disabled. If NPACT is hosting your GE Classic and you're not moving to Foundation Cloud, we'll continue to host, without support of course, until March 1st of 2025. If you want to continue to use your on-premise instance beyond that, reach out to me regarding a separate license and we can talk about that. Sunsetting this older product allows our team to focus on growing and enhancing our products and to help you grow your business. I'm now going to toss this over to Jeff to get into it. So with that, Jeff, take it away.
All right, thank you, Amy. Hi, folks. Yeah, as Amy just said, we are transitioning from Classic to Foundation Cloud, and I just want to start off by saying we know this is going to be a significant change for you guys. It's going to be painful. Internally here at NPACT, we've had to change a lot of our business applications that we use, and we know that change management is really painful. So we certainly empathize, our support team is here to help you along the way. We've got your back as you make this change. We know this change can be difficult, but we've got some tips here on how to plan for making the transition easier. So first of all, we definitely want to make sure that you are planning to set aside time for your staff to do training. You can't just switch over. We recommend maybe 90 minutes or so to watch some of the training videos on thinkific.com. We put together some great content in these online videos that can help you with the transition. Of course, attending these 3 sessions as well is going to help. We recommend about half an hour or so just to get familiar with the web application itself, log in, explore the toolbar and menus. We'll be doing a lot of that today. But give your users, give your staff, a good half hour to get in and just play around with it and get familiar with the look and feel. Maybe another hour or so to practice creating grant records and doing some other data entry. And then maybe another hour or so to practice various other functions, maybe check run processing or correspondence, things of that nature. But just do expect that your staff is going to need time to acclimate to the new product. And so we just recommend you do that planning accordingly. We recognize the busy giving season is coming up, and a lot of you may not have the time during the next couple of months to do that. We totally get it. We recommend you set aside time in January or February for that. On the next slide here, we've got a couple more suggestions here. We recommend that you consider having one leader within your organization spend the time to learn the system well and perform internal training for all of your staff. That would be a good single point of contact within your organization. If that person can't resolve an issue, then you can open a support case and our team can help you with that. But having one person within your organization be a leader and an expert in the product will certainly help things go smoother. If your foundation has internal documentation that you've built around your business processes, go ahead and take the time to update those documents to use the Foundation Cloud Grants processes rather than the GE Classic processes. As you move from Classic to Foundation Cloud Grants, you may identify that there are business processes within your organization which might need to change. And as you figure out how to do these things in Foundation Cloud Grants, celebrate each win and take advantage of the opportunity to improve your organization's efficiency as you're changing your software. And then finally, getting buy-in from your entire organization helps. You're going to have some folks who are excited about the change, and you're going to have some folks who are not excited about the change. But just stress the advantages of the new system and just the need for communication and patience. And empathize with them that this isn't necessarily going to be an easy change, but long term it is going to be a much better thing for your foundation in a more secure and online way. So those are our tips on how to embrace change. We've got a sample timeline we've put together in our next slide here where if you're not going to do this during the busy season, maybe you want to wait until January to start your transition. Maybe start off with a week, giving your staff time to watch training videos and spending time in Foundation Cloud Grants to learn the system. They'll need a few hours, like we said in that slide a couple slides ago, to do that. Maybe on January 29th, that Monday, have an internal meeting to review any concerns that anyone's found, any questions they've got. If you need to open impact support tickets, our support team has got your back for sure. And then maybe spend the rest of that week spending additional time in Foundation Cloud Grants, getting familiar with your processes, with your functions. And then set a day when you're going to start using FCG as your primary system for processing your day-to-day operations, using Classic only as a last resort, but then opening your support tickets as you need and spending that time trying to do everything in FCG. And then set a deadline where your transition is complete and you're no longer going back to Classic, you're completely in FCG, and celebrate that as an organization that you finally made it across that finish line. So that's our recommendation on change management. As Amy said, she's happy to help. I'm happy to help with any sort of change management consulting you want us to do with you on how to make this transition easier for your staff, for your users. We're here to help. So let's go ahead and move on to talking about some paradigm shifts. So Foundation Cloud Grants is a browser-based application, and GE Classic, of course, is a Windows application. And the way you think about a Windows app and the way you think about a web app are very different. So we've got some paradigm shifts that we're going to need to kind of change the way we think about this application. The first one is just the menu orientation. GE Classic had a left menu, and Foundation Cloud Grants has a top menu. We'll go through the menu in just a second. I'll share my screen and we'll do a quick walkthrough and look at what that menu looks like. But the look and feel is very different. But things are oriented across the top instead of across the side. And we're no longer using that old look and feel. A lot of the same functions, in fact, all the same day-to-day functions are still going to be available in Foundation Cloud Grants. But they might be in different places or there might be a different way to find them. So that's the first big paradigm shift, is where to find the menu and where to find your links and your functions. So the next paradigm shift that we want to talk about here is the way record screens are laid out. So in Foundation Cloud Grants, Instead of tabs, like we see on the right there in GE Classic, we've got what we call tiles. And so if a grant screen had, 8 tabs on it, then in Classic, then it's going to have 8 tiles on it instead in Foundation Cloud Grants. And we'll look through all these tiles differently. But generally speaking, a web application record is pulled up in a read-only state. And to edit things, there are buttons to go in and make changes to pull up editor pop-ups. In Classic, you just sort of have the record right open in your hand and you could make changes right then and there. The web paradigm is very different. You see all the data, you have to click through buttons to go in and make changes. And we'll walk you through that in just a second. Next, we've got editing records and pop-up screens. Nope, I'm sorry. Can you go back one? I think that's the toast. Yeah, there we go. Editing records and pop-up screens. You'll see a little edit button on most of the record screens where you can pop up an editor to edit there. You'll see the save and the cancel button there. We'll walk you through this process in just a second. But again, your record screen basically was an editor in Classic, and in NXT it's not. It's a different paradigm. So we'll jump in and take a look at that in just a second. The way that you get notifications is different. On the next tab here, we can see toast messages. Your record alerts used to pop up in message boxes like you see on the left. And now they pop up in little alerts on the bottom of the screen that we call toast. There'll be different colors. A green one is just information. A yellow is a warning. A red is an error. And so you'll see these alert messages pop up from time to time. We think it's a lot less distracting this way. You don't have to click through every message you see to even be able to see the data, etc. So different paradigm there on the way messages are shown. The next one we want to talk through here is landing pages. In GE Classic, we had the show all screens, right? Show all grants, show all proposals, etc. In Foundation Cloud Grants, each of our major record types has a landing screen. And you come in and see, we'll go through one of these in detail in just a second, but we'll have some aggregate data and charts and links at the top. There's a button strip underneath that for various functions, and then a grid that shows all the records manipulated in similar ways that you could in Classic, but the look and feel is a bit different. So we'll go through that in just a second. And then finally, one of the biggest paradigms heads around file management. In GE Classic, when you go to the media tab of a document, then essentially you are opening the actual document itself in Word, and you are editing order. And so you're in a browser, and so when you click on a link, it's going to download a file to your machine. But editing that file is just going to save it downloads folder on your. It's not going to save it back up in the network. So if you need to make changes to a file, you can download it and make those changes, and then upload it back again in the Foundation Cloud record. But just keep in mind, any changes you make to a file that you've downloaded locally are not going to change the file on the Foundation Clouds. So those are the paradigm shifts that we are looking at here, and we're just about to jump in. I'll share my screen in a second. And we'll take a look at Foundation Cloud Grants, but I do want to take a second and come up for air. I don't see anything in the Q&A yet. I don't know if Brandon and Amy have been jumping on top of that, or if we have questions that we need to address, Amy?
Nope, none yet, Jeff.
Okay, very good. Then I will share my screen, and we can jump through. Here we are. Can everyone see the Foundation Cloud Grants?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So this is Foundation Cloud Grants. I've logged into I'm going to log into one of our sandboxes here. You'll have a different URL. But our sandbox here is where I'm going to log in, and we're going to step through Foundation Cloud Grants. The login screen is similar, slightly different. You'll log in with your email address, not just a username. You'll have the same options you had in Classic before to connect to the CRM or the finance system. There's a Keep Me Signed In checkbox, which will just basically make sure that you get a cookie saved on your in your browser that lets you stay signed in to Foundation Cloud Grants. When you first sign up, you're going to have to set up multi-factor authentication. And that multi-factor authentication, there's a guided walkthrough that'll show you how to set that up. You can download an app onto your mobile device. You can also get text messages for that multi-factor authentication to enter in a confirmation number. And it can also call a phone number and have you confirm over the phone if you'd like to do that as well. If you forgot your password, you can get a link from here. It'll email you a reset link or a temporary password to get logged back in. And then notice our green help sliders that we've got all throughout the site. You've got help content that's dynamic to every page that you're logged in, that you're seeing. For each one, you can go navigate around and see different parts of the help content if you need to. You can search the help from up here. And then right down here from the bottom, you can contact support. You'll notice if you look in the bottom left over here, when I hover over these links, this will take you to the Impact Support website where you can enter in a new case, or you can access our knowledge base on Document 360 from here as well. So good, helpful links there. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And I've logged in. Now it's taking me to the getting started. This is our landing page. We've got long-term plans here to put in new dashboards, etc. Right now, we've got a link to our release notes. You can see what's changed. We'll have various announcements here from time to time. Sometimes we'll say coming soon. We're going to have an upgrade. It'll give you a maintenance window, etc. But yeah, this look and feel is going to be very different than what you saw before. Let's take a look and see. We've got all the menus. We'll go through those in a second. At the top here, we've got a really powerful search function that's unlike anything we had in Classic. I could search for, just going to type in Sisters. Sisters of Mercy is one of our grant recipients here. So I can see a C constituent record. I can see a few grant records. There are more, but I can just see the top 3 here, and then a few proposal records. If I go in, just click the search button, it's going to take me to this global search screen, and I can search for whatever I want to. I can just look for grants, or just look for constituents, etc. And of course, clicking in these would take me to those record pages. So very helpful little global search function. In Classic, you had 4 or 5 different search functions, those quick search little deals, and now we've just got them consolidated into one master search. In the Classic landing page, we also had the connections to the CRM and finance systems, and those guys are right here. You'll see right now they've got the little warning triangle here, meaning we're not connected. And if I just click on one of these, it's going to ask me, do you want to connect to CRM? And I say yes, and ta-da, I am connected. The very first time you connect, if you're connecting to Raiser's Edge or Financial Edge, you will need to go into, you'll get a pop-up. It's going to ask you to sign into blackbaud.com. Once you do, it's going to ask you, do you give Foundation Cloud Grants permission to access your Raiser's Edge or your Financial Edge data? When you approve that, it'll come back and give you a token and get you connected. Pardon me. You'll see under here, I've got access to my account. I can sign out from here as well. When I look at my account, I can go see what my role is. If I had multi-factor authentication set up, I could reset it from here. I could change my password and do a few things from here. And of course, help on all those little screens. This open admin view, this is what Amy was talking about before. This is only going to be here for another 5 months or so. This is where you get into GE Classic. It'll bring up our Citrix login, or you can log into Classic for the next 5 months or so. This little dude is our notifications. So these alerts tell us when something needs attention. There was a to-do list in GE Classic on the homepage that said you had, portal processing queue items or whatever. This is our NXT answer to that. This is in Foundation Cloud Grants. We can see most of these are related to the web portal. Administrators, if you log in as an admin, you may see if there were sync issues the night before, data sync, overnight sync problems, it would notify you of those. It'll tell you about all the workflow tasks that are assigned to you. Each of these will take you to a page within the application here. So let's review the menus real quick here. Under the grants menu, remember we had the left menu in Classic. Here in Foundation Cloud Grants, we've got a top menu. Our grants menu is where we get most of our grant related records, right? So we'll go to the grants landing page in a minute. But we've got the grants landing page, online grant requests that are submitted from the portal. Designated grants are here. Constituents and funds can both be accessed through here as well. And then these last two are a couple from the Foundation Cloud community portal that some of you may have access to, some of you may not have turned these functions on, but If you have prospective fund holders who want to open a new fund, you may have new fund requests. If you have vendors using your portal, you may have payment requests for reimbursement. Those would all come into here. On our proposals menu, we've got obviously our proposals landing page, but also the program area and portfolio records, just like in Classic. Similarly, scholarships, all four of these core scholarship for record types, the applications, the applicants, the funds, and the institutions. We've also got our scholarship matching function available here. For those of you who don't know, you can do scholarship matching. You can provide that function to your applicants as your students are applying. You can say, hey, you're eligible for these 12 scholarship funds, pick up to 4 or whatever you set. Or you can not let them match and you can do the matching yourself. And if you do that from here, you can choose an application and see all the funds they applied to, or you can choose a fund and see all the applications that they can apply to. Online apps is where we handle our web apps. This is application management. It also includes the HTML editor for building out your web apps. They get published in the community portal. Your incoming application submissions get processed here in submitted proposals, submitted scholarship applications. In Classic, these used to be called manage online proposal applications, manage online scholarship applications. So we've renamed them here, but those are the same core functions. In Classic, the portal processing queue is now called the web processing queue, and that's available here too. Review functions, very similar to the review menu in Foundation Cloud, in GE Classic. We've got the reviews themselves, and then the reviewers and the committees that they're on, and then the application groups as you group together the submissions. Under reporting, we've got access to all the queries that you've got in your Classic environment. So anything that you had built out in GE Classic, you'll have access to those same queries here in FCG through a similar editor. Classic paginated reports, those are your SQL Server reporting services reports, SSRS reports. You'll have access to those through here as well. And then we've got our Power BI reports. So you'll have your paginated reports, and those are essentially just the same as your Classic paginated reports, but in the Power BI environment. And then these are your Power BI data visualizations, where you can see, overall views of, what does your scholarship project look like? What does your, your overall demographic targeting for your grants look like, et cetera. And then finally, a sandbox report where you can go in and set up your own data visualizations for anything you need to in your data environment. Our batch screens, we plan to go over this in quite a bit of detail on our third webinar in 2 weeks. But all 6 batch types are available from this menu. Dockets and check runs, grant batches, all the processing batches are available from here. And then we used to have in Classic, we had an admin menu and a config menu, and we've consolidated those 2 menus into a single settings menu here in Foundation Cloud Grants. So you can manage your users and your roles. You can set up your correspondence templates and manage those. Your workflow templates and tasks, you can set all those up here. Characteristics can be managed. Custom fields in Classic, we used to call them profile fields. We thought that name was confusing. We heard from several of you guys who agreed. And so now we're calling them custom fields in Foundation Cloud Grants. Those can be configured and administered here. View activity as logs. And so we'll have transaction logs if you are using Foundation Cloud Community Portal for online gifts. We'll have overnight sync processing logs that you can see from here as well. And then our system logs, any errors or other information that's being logged by the system itself, you can access from view activity. Data tools will give you the ability to import grants. If you're using a third-party system for managing online grant applications, you can import your awards here. You can also do manual syncs from here. You can kick off sync processes from this menu and monitor those from here. And then system is where you'd go to things like the business rules configuration and various settings for different record types. So this is our menu structure. Hopefully you can spend some time and wrap your head around these. We are going to jump into a landing page now. So I'm going to go to the grants landing page. Again, in Classic, you used to go to the show all grants screen, and now this is the grants landing page. Similar functionality, but we like the look and feel a whole lot better. We've got some summary data up here at the top, your recently accessed records, the same ones that you had recently accessed in Classic we'll bring over into NXT. And then a couple of charts to show overall views of your grant data. You can drill into these charts and see some details. Underneath this header, we'll, generally speaking, for all these landing pages, we're going to have a button strip for various functions you can do here. So for grants, you can do a new grant record. There are 4 different types of grants, as I'm sure you know. And so we've got 4 different buttons for creating the 4 different grant types. And we'll do a new grant in just a moment. And then underneath the button strip is the grid of all the grant records. I've only got 539 in this sandbox environment, so this isn't filtered. But when you log in, you're likely to see that maybe only the top 3,000 grant records have been returned. We want to maintain the good performance of the system, and if we tried to load in 50,000 grant records from your history into your browser, it would slow things down significantly. So initially, we'll just set a throttle on that. And it'll only show you the first 3,000, the newest 3,000 grant records. And then there's a button there where you can load them all in if you need to. If you go to do a search and you can't find something that's new, you can always show all of your grants. Click that button to show all your grants, or you can come up and do your search. The search function always shows you all of your grants. And it's worth noting here too that in the online help, there are instructions for using the grants grid. This is some really great content. This shows how you can add records, how you can search within the grids, how you can use the column chooser, etc. Lots of good information here, but we'll walk through these together. You can search. I can search for, again, I'd searched earlier for the Sisters of Mercy. I can just search for sisters and it will bring up any of the grants that are set up for this recipient. I can clear that out and go back to seeing all my grants. There is a column chooser. So if I wanted to, I don't want to see the system type. That's sort of a distracting and meaningless field. So let's get rid of that one. Uncheck that guy. And so now we can get rid of that one. This looks a bit better to me. You can, just like you could in Classic, you can reorder these columns. You can resize them. And it will remember that, it'll remember your selections per user. And so that's not per machine, it's per user. It's not even per browser. So if you go home and log in on your laptop, you'll see the same layout that you had saved at the office. You can also do filtering. Filtering is pretty powerful. We could go in and say, we just want to see the grants where, let's just use that same example, where the recipient begins with sisters. And if I apply this filter, it's just going to filter down to these 34 records. You'll notice the filter itself is listed here. I could add in multiple filters if I wanted to. The little X button will let me close a filter. I can clear the filters from here as well. But one of the cool new features we've recently added is that these filters are sticky. If I bail and I come back to this grants landing page, I've still got my filter left. It's pretty cool. And then, of course, you can also export all the data that's in this grid. You can export to a CSV file. It's going to put it in my downloads, and Microsoft will open that up for me. Thank you, Microsoft. The export function is there for any of these data grids that you see where you can reorder the columns. You can export. So common functions in all of our grids. You should be able to do all these things. And then, so let's go ahead and open up a new grant record. Let's create a new grant record, rather. You'll notice this didn't take us to a grant record screen. In GE Classic, when you clicked on new grant, it would just open up a grant record screen that was more or less empty. When you went back to open that record later, it looked exactly like whenever you had created it in the first place. This is going to be a different experience. We're going to open up this grant details screen and go ahead and fill out all this information. This is going to be very much like what we had in Classic. So I'll skip over a lot of these fields. Next week, Danielle is going to go into a lot of detail on the grant record itself. She'll go through all these. She'll go through the grant record screen. I'm going to give you a quick preview. I'm going to try not to steal too much of her thunder. Let's do a request type of C. Let's say this is for $650. This was a web request, one payment. It's a grant. We'll look up a fund. This is how we look for funds. And so we can look for funds in FCG. And this will just find a fund that matches, or I can find multiple funds that match in Foundation Cloud Grants. I could also go out and search my CRM system. Let's see if it's got any there. It's got the annual fund. It's got Princess Anne. So yep, lots of different ways to do this. Let's go search for this one in FCG 1004 Hugo. So that'll be our fund. We can see our total assets and our cash available listed here on this screen. Handy little refresh button will let me go in and recalculate it if I want to. Recipient lookup is similar. I can look for Sisters of Mercy here in Foundation Cloud Grants. I could also go look them up in Raiser's Edge, see if they're there. I can go create a new Raiser's Edge constituent if I need to, pardon me. This will pop up a new screen to fill all that information out. And it will create a new record in the CRM system and link it to the one here in FCG. I want to use the one I've already got, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to, let's do a different payee. Do we have a YNCB record in here? Maybe not. Sisters of Mercy again. Okay. The check designation templates that you had set up in Classic are all going to come right over to Foundation Cloud Grants. So you can choose from these predefined check designations, or you can go in and modify them yourself if you like. That check designation also just automatically defaults to the report designation like it did in Classic. We've got the additional notes fields that are all optional for special instructions, notes to staff. This may have come in from the portal. Grant conditions. This may have come in from the portal. Who's the record manager going to be? It's going to default to the current user, but I can change this and say, no, this is going to be Chrissy's record. I can check whether it's anonymous, it requires a 1099. Once I save it, it's going to go ahead and create that new record and take me to the record page. So this is the grant record page. Again, I'm going to let Danielle walk through this in great detail next week. But at a high level, let's look at some of the things we noticed before. There are no tabs. Now there are tiles, and all this data is split up into tiles. The tiles should look familiar, though, because they're based on all the same things that the tabs were. We've got a tile, we have a characteristics tile, we've got a workflow tile, etc. The correspondence tile and the media tile, we combined into a single tile here in Foundation Cloud Grants, and we're calling this the documents tile. So I could upload a file from my hard drive if I wanted to, or I could go in and do a mail merge, either a document or an email. And I could say this will be a fund acknowledgement letter, and this will generate this content. It's done the mail merge for me. I can enter in my recipients, my to and from, etc. Fill all this out and send it. I could add an attachment. I'll cancel this, but all of your media documents will be here, and all of your correspondence documents will be here. In Classic, we had an info tab at the very end of most of our record screens, and info has been renamed properties, but we've got all the same functions there. We've got record alerts, we've got the associated records, we've got the activity log, where you can see who's changed the record when, etc. So these tiles, it's worth noting, these tiles can be moved around. If I want my funds first, I don't know how easily you guys can see, but we've got little up and down arrows here for expanding and collapsing. And then we've got the 9 little squares here with a grab little mouse pointer. And when I grab this tile, I can just drag it over here. Again, this is, remember, per user. So next time I log in, my funds are always going to be here until I move them around. Amy may want to keep her funds over on the right when she logs in. So you can move these wherever you like them. And not just up and down, but sorry, not just left and right, but up and down. I can drag funds to the very bottom if I didn't care about that as much. In this menu strip, we've got a few options here. The expand all and collapse all is kind of cool. Right now, all of these tiles are expanded. I could collapse them all if I wanted to real quickly see, where's my workflow? There's my workflow. Click, I can just expand the one or collapse it again. You'll notice this workflow tile has another option over here. This is an editor button. So if I wanted to edit each workflow step, I would use this ellipsis item here, right? This will let me edit a workflow step or delete a workflow step. But this workflow template the grant workflow has already been set on this this grant record. And if I wanted to edit that, I would hit this little guy and it would pop up an editor screen, a little modal window where I can change the template if I want to. And so anytime you see one of these little square editor icons, that's going to let you open up an editor for a particular tile. And of course, editing the entire application, the entire grant record is done with this edit button. And this will edit almost everything that we've got here in the grant details screen here. This will look very much like the screen that we just filled out to create this grant record in the first place. I could go in and make changes here and save them. Those changes should immediately get reflected in this grant details tile and up here in the header if I change the recipient or payee, even on the other tiles as I made changes there that were relevant. If we have Power BI reports or classic paginated reports that are associated with grant records, those can be accessed here, and I can just pull up Power BI report and run that from here. And then also we've got the actions toolbar here. We've got a lot of options in this button. We can convert this standard grant to a scholarship grant or convert it to an interfund transfer. We can link it to a parent application. Maybe we know this grant record should have been associated with a proposal, but it's not linked for some reason. We can go link it. If it is linked, you'll see the parent link up here in the header, and you can unlink it from here if you need to and go relink it to a different record. A couple of other really important features here. If you had access to the adjustment utility in Foundation Cloud Grants, we don't have a single utility built for that in Foundation Cloud Grants. What we decided to do was implement that here on the record screen itself. So this is the adjustment utility just for this particular grant. And I can see that all of my amounts and my totals of everything matches up here. I could go in and make changes if I needed to the payments, to the components. I could even see the adjustments from here if I needed to see any adjustments that had been made. But I can make those I can make those changes here. Not every user is going to have access to this. Again, it's going to have an elevated security permission. So if you had access in Classic, you'll have access here. And any changes you make there will get logged in detail and put down into the activity log so that we can see who changed what and when. Very important. And then finally, this one's got a copy function. So if I want to re-grant this, it'll pull it up, and it's pretty much got all the same data as we had before, except it will have put in a new grant date for today's date. And this is basically a new grant record screen. And once you save this, it'll create a brand new grant record and navigate you to that one. So that's a high-level overview. Pardon me. That's a high-level overview of our menu structure, our toolbars, our landing pages, our grids, and our record screens. Next week and the week after, we're going to dive into a whole lot more detail about how to edit records, create them, day-to-day business processes, but wanted to give you this high-level overview of where we've gone with this feature set. So I'm going to come up for air again here and see if we've got any questions in Q&A.
That's great. We do have some in the chat, Jeff, that Brandon has been so kind to go through and answer them, but I think we should call out a couple of them. That'd be great for anyone not watching the chat.
Okay,
one of them was, where's the global delete menu?
Great question. It's under the settings menu, and it's in the data tools area. So settings, data tools. There are 5 data tools available here, and global delete is the third one. So when you're here, you can choose, do I want to do a global delete of grant records? This will show me any grants that are eligible to be deleted. I think they have to have a status of invalid, and they can't have any payments that have been processed. So I don't know that we've got any in this sandbox that meet that criteria. But global deletes for proposals, for scholarships, it's all that information here.
Great. And this requires an elevated security as well, correct?
It does. That's correct. A lot of the functions here in the settings menu require additional permissions.
Great. The next one was, when creating a proposal, how do you select a portfolio? In Classic, it's under the fund allocation. Great
question. Let's go take a look and see. We'll do a new proposal record. I don't see it on this first screen. So this is where we'd fill out all the proposal details and save it, and it would take us to a record screen. I don't see that portfolio option here on this screen. So let's take a look at one of these proposal records, jump in and see.
Jeff, I
Brandon
can
did enter
comment
this
on
one.
this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead,
but
Brandon.
it's open the portfolio first.
If you open up a portfolio first, you can add any proposals that you'd like. So it is a little bit more clicking around to go through that step instead of adding it directly, but you are able to link those proposals and portfolios together.
I can click here and add these. We'll add all three of these to this portfolio. This
And
is a
then
demo environment, and my salespeople aren't going to be happy unless I remove all these. So bear with me. Go ahead, sir.
you should also be able to see, what portfolio you're linked to in the record properties tile down there on your portfolio.
Oh, great question. So
Just
yep.
to see that you are in fact linked.
All right, so let's go take a look at, we've just added proposal number 5 to portfolio 3, this micro lending portfolio. Let's go take a look at this proposal record. And here we see, we jump down to the properties tile, it's over here, and we can see that the portfolio here is micro lending. And if we were to go in and start doing some fund allocation here, we would have to ensure that as we add funds, only the funds that are in that portfolio are going to be the ones that are selected, right?
And this is actually an area we're working on in this current sprint, where we're limiting the funds that are available to you in that modal you just brought up, if you are connected to a portfolio.
Right.
Got it.
There was another question Bonnie just asked. Is the portfolio similar to project grants in Classic?
Logically speaking, those can both be used for budgeting purposes. So it's a good question. Essentially, the logic behind program areas and portfolios is, how are you as an organization going to spend money that you've decided on, as a discretionary decision? Say your organization decides you're going to spend $500,000 in the arts this year, right? And so you can set up a program area for the arts within that, and you'd set it up with a budget of $500,000. Within that, you could set up a couple of portfolios and say these are performing arts and these are visual arts and ballet and whatever various arts within those, and you could allocate from that 500,000 those funds out to the various portfolios, and then you'd add the proposals as you get your applications in from your applicants. You could add them to the appropriate portfolio for tracking that budget and seeing how much that you as an organization are spending. Project grants logically have a different purpose. Again, they can be used for that too, but on a project grant, essentially the idea behind that is that you've got one fund. Typically it's one fund that is giving to multiple recipients. One example is that we had one organization who decided as a foundation that they were going to be giving a $15 million grant to their local police department. But they weren't just going to cut them a $15 million check. They had a bunch of sub grants underneath that, where some of that went to an organization that made and sold uniforms, right? Some of them went to auto shops for repairs on vehicles, and all sorts of different sub grants underneath that for managing a master grant project. So grant projects are essentially used to budget one big grant that may have multiple recipients. And program areas and portfolios are essentially used to manage your discretionary spending to various applicants, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I know, Bonnie, you did have another question, and I'm going to bring that up with Jeff too. But there was another one about, does workflow feature any automation, such as approval steps that can auto-update a grant status, or some way to automate due diligence and approval and set restrictions for user levels?
That's a loaded question with a lot of facets to it. We do have workflow batch features. We're going to get into that in our third webinar. But if you open up, for example, if you do a proposal batch and you've got, let's take a look at one of these that's got 5 proposals on this batch, you can do workflow from here. And so I could say, these 3 are all part of the supplemental workflow template. I could check all 3 of these that are in this batch, and I could process a workflow task, and I could say supplemental. I could say for each of these, we're going to say the staff review was completed today, and these are all approved. and that would update the workflow for all 5 of these records. Typically one of your proposal workflow steps is to create grants. You can also do that from here. And so for all the grants that are in a batch, for all the proposals that are in a batch, you could do all of your grant record creation from this proposal batch. And so you can do all these things in batch. We don't have any auto approval functionality that's built in. You can put conditions on grant payments that get automatically updated. So if I've got a grant payment where payment 3 is contingent on workflow step 4 being completed and approved, then if you put payment number 3 onto a check run, it's not going to create the invoice in the finance system unless that workflow step's been completed with that status outcome. But when that happens, when that workflow step changes, then it'll automatically update the condition on that grant payment to trigger it to be available for processing. So yeah, exactly what Brandon just said. Workflow steps trigger status updates to proposals and to scholarships. But
I was just trying to get that. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. Grant statuses are largely driven by financial processing. So you put a grant payment onto a check run, and it'll go to check run batched, and then invoicing, and whatever, it'll go through that process. But as you do workflow steps in proposals, I'm not sure what our data looks like here. But if I were to open up a proposal record and go to a workflow step, this board review step was approved by Brandon. Thanks, Brandon. And when that happened, the status of this proposal went from new to approved. That's an automatic trigger here in the workflow to change the record status. These are all set up and configured the same way in NXT that they're set up in Classic. Yeah, our support team can help walk you through setting some of those up if you need to.
Great. I'm going to ask another one. One of the foundations, at each month end, they would add a new month that is available for reporting. And now they can only do that in the admin view. Where would that be done in Foundation Cloud?
Right. That was typically done. I remember some of our implementation staff from years gone past had set up fund statement reports where the list of available months for reporting on a fund statement would be driven by settings either maybe in our custom tables or in our global settings area. And so, yeah, some foundations have to go in monthly and update some global settings to publish their reports. Those functions are no longer available in Foundation Clouds. We can't get directly to the tables area, although we have access to some of the tables through business rules screens. But for those functions specifically, we would probably need to look at a different solution for automating that publication of closing a month. If you don't want your fund holders to see their fund statements for what is this? This is the end of October right now. So if you don't want them to see an October 31 statement until maybe the second week of November, then we do have some of our newer fund statements we've set up where as of arbitrarily say the 15th of the month, the prior month is going to be available or something along those lines. So yeah, Bonnie, I understand that's a big issue. We are going to need to look through and see what can we do to get past that. I'm confident we can figure something out. But the way it was set up before with global settings is not going to be a viable solution going forward, but we can figure something out.
Great. I think we've covered a number of them already, and Brandon has answered the other ones through the chat or in the question and answer section. So I think we can move on here. I know we have just a few minutes left.
Okay. You want to take the screen back?
Yep. Great. All right. That was a lot of information. We know we do have resources available to help you with this transition, including our monthly playback newsletter. In that, I highlight the month's announcements to kind of keep it all in one tight little spot. Of course, we have our support portal, our knowledge base, where there's a number of documents that will help you through all of these. We also have, like Jeff mentioned previously, a number of the on-demand training videos, as well as our webinar series, Let's Talk Solutions. And all those recordings can be found in our knowledge base. Again, I'm just marking this, highlighting these dates again. Please mark your calendars for the upcoming sessions on November 2nd, November 9th. Please feel free to register even if you cannot make it, so that we can make sure to get you a recording of these with these great details of the new software. I think we've covered all the questions already, but let's take one more quick look. Bonnie, I think we'll reach out to you and schedule some time with you for your fund statement discussion. Nola, it looks like your questions were answered about the all fund screen and the deadlines. I believe those were covered by Brandon. They're also covered in this recording. You'll be able to see the exact dates, and we can actually go back to those slides possibly. Quick pull up those deadlines one more time. Here we go. So here's the your organization. If you're in the process of migrating NOLA, we'll continue to support your GE Classic until that migration is complete. So I think that's the one that hits you. I think we have everything. Any other questions? I think we're good. We have 6 minutes to spare. Well, thank you, everyone. Please remember to shoot me an email if you think of other topics that you'd like us to cover on these sessions, as well as any feedback on this presentation. Both mine and Jeff's contact information is there on the screen. And I want to thank you all for spending time with us today. We'll see you next Thursday on November 2nd for series number 2. Thanks all for joining us.
Thanks,
Bye
folks.
now.
Have a good one.